the chessboard of betrayal. I had always thought my marriage was unshakable, a fortress built on love, trust, and shared dreams. Emily and I had been together for 7 years, and while no relationship is perfect, ours felt solid. Or so I believed. It started with subtle shifts. Late nights at the office, hushed phone calls, and an inexplicable distance that settled between us like a cold fog. The day I found her silk scarf in the car, wrapped in a scent I didn't recognize, my suspicions began to take form. I had no proof, just an unsettling feeling gnawing at the edges of my mind. I didn't confront her immediately. I've always been a man who plays the long game, and this situation was no different. If Emily was betraying me, I needed more than suspicions. I needed clarity, not just for revenge, but for myself, to understand the cracks that had formed in the foundation of our marriage. The discovery. The truth came to light one evening when she accidentally left her phone unlocked on the kitchen counter. I had no intention of snooping, but when a message from Daniel flashed across the screen, a message far too intimate to be professional, my hand moved almost on its own. There it was. Weeks of messages, photos, and plans, all laid, bare in digital form. She was cheating. With Daniel, her colleague. The betrayal cut deep, but I didn't crumble. I sat in the quiet of our living room, staring at the evidence, my emotions a storm beneath the surface, pain, anger, disbelief, all swirling within me. But through it all, a plan began to form. The plan revenge wasn't about destruction, it was about precision. I wanted Emily to understand the depth of her betrayal and to face the consequences of her actions. This wasn't going to be a screaming match or a dramatic confrontation. No, I would dismantle her world with the same calm calculation she had, used to deceive me. Step 1 was securing my finances. Over the next month, I quietly moved assets out of our joint accounts, ensuring that my savings were safe. I documented everything, the messages, the times she lied about her whereabouts, even her receipts from their dinners. I also consulted a lawyer to prepare for what was coming. The moment of truth on. Our wedding anniversary, I orchestrated a dinner at our favorite restaurant. She arrived, radiant and unsuspecting, carrying a gift for me. I played the part of the doting husband, smiling and toasting to many more years together. Little did she know, I had invited a few unexpected guests to join us. Halfway through the meal, Daniel walked in, his face a mixture of confusion and alarm. Behind him were Emily's parents, who had always adored me, and a few of our closest friends. The table fell silent as I stood, raising my glass. "To Emily," I said, my voice steady, "the woman who taught me the importance of trust, even if it was by breaking it." I placed a folder on the table, my meticulously gathered evidence, and pushed it toward her. The color drained from her face as she opened it, her eyes darting to Daniel, then to her parents. The aftermath I left that night, walking away from the chaos I had unleashed. It wasn't about humiliation. It was about reclaiming my dignity. The divorce was swift, and with the evidence I provided, I walked away with everything I had worked for, including the moral high ground. Emily's world unraveled. Daniel turned, out to be a man of many lies himself, and their relationship crumbled under the weight of its own deceit. Meanwhile, I rebuilt my life, piece by piece, rediscovering the strength I had forgotten I possessed. The lesson, revenge, isn't always about hurting someone back. It's about finding closure and ensuring you don't lose yourself in the process. Emily's betrayal taught me that trust is fragile, but so is deceit when faced with the light of truth. And as I moved forward, I realized that sometimes the best revenge is living a life so fulfilled and genuine that it outshines the shadows of betrayal. A new chapter. After the divorce was finalized, life felt different. There was a strange blend of freedom and emptiness, like stepping into a house you've just finished building, solid and full of potential, but not yet a home. I took time to focus on myself, to reconnect with who I was before the marriage, before the betrayal. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. The canvases became my therapy, the strokes of color releasing emotions I hadn't realized were still locked inside me. I began volunteering at a local community center, helping troubled teens navigate their own struggles. It felt good to channel my energy into something positive, something meaningful. But life had more surprises in store. The encounter one evening, I was at a gallery showcasing local artists, as I admired a vibrant piece that seemed to dance with light and movement. A voice spoke behind me. "Beautiful, isn't it?" I turned to see a woman with a warm smile and intelligent eyes. Her name was Clara, and she was one of the featured artists. We struck up a conversation, first about art, then about life. There was an ease to our connection, a natural flow that felt refreshing after years of strained companionship. Clara had her own story of heartbreak, a failed engagement that had left her wary but resilient. We didn't dive into the details right away. Instead, we focused on the present, on the joy of creating and discovering. Healing and growth, Clara and I became friends, then collaborators, and eventually something more. But this time, I approached love with caution and wisdom. I was honest about my past, about the scars I carried. She was the same. We didn't rush into anything. We allowed our relationship to grow organically, like a tree taking root. Through Clara, I learned that not all relationships are doomed to fail, that love can be built on mutual respect and honesty. She reminded me that life's greatest stories often emerge from the ashes of its darkest chapters. Emily's return. One day, as I was walking through the park near my home, I saw Emily. She was sitting alone on a bench, staring at the pond. Her once confident demeanor was replaced with something softer, more vulnerable. Against my better judgment, I approached her. She looked up, startled, then gave me a small, sad smile. "Hi," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. We talked, briefly. She apologized, not just for what she had done, but for the way she had underestimated the damage it would cause. She told me she had lost Daniel, her job, and, most importantly, her sense of self. There was no bitterness in her words, just regret. I listened, but didn't offer much in return. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't about absolving her. It was about freeing myself. So I told her I forgave her, not for her sake, but for mine. A life reclaimed as the years passed. I built a new life, one filled with purpose and joy. Clara and I opened an art studio together, a space where people of all ages could explore their creativity. It became a sanctuary, not just for others, but for us as well. Emily faded into the background of my life, a distant memory of lessons learned. I didn't wish her ill. I simply wished her away, like a shadow dissolving in the morning light. Revenge may have been the spark that set my transformation in motion, but it was healing, growth, and the rediscovery of love that carried me forward. And so, my story turned from one of betrayal and vengeance to one of resilience and renewal, a reminder that even the darkest nights can give way to the brightest dawns, a glimpse into the future. The years rolled by like chapters in a novel, each one more fulfilling than the last. Clara and I not only grew our art studio into a beloved community hub, but also deepened our bond in ways I hadn't thought possible. After Emily, trust, communication, and shared passions became the foundation of our relationship. On a crisp autumn morning, we decided to host an open-air exhibit showcasing the works of our students. As families and art enthusiasts strolled through the park, admiring the pieces displayed on easels beneath the golden leaves, Clara pulled me aside. "I have something for you," she said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. She handed me a small envelope. Inside was a sketch of the two of us, drawn in her unmistakable style. Below it, in delicate handwriting, were the words, "Let's start our masterpiece together. Will you marry me?" A new beginning. Her proposal was unconventional, just like Clara herself. I laughed, overwhelmed by the beauty of the moment, and said yes without hesitation. The park erupted in cheers as she slipped a simple, handcrafted band onto my finger. It wasn't about tradition or grand gestures. It was about us, about love. Born from understanding and mutual respect, our wedding was a celebration of art and life, held in the same studio that had brought us together. Friends, family, and even some of the teens I had mentored were there. The walls were adorned with paintings, each one telling a story of growth and resilience. Emily's shadow. Not long after the wedding, I received a letter from Emily. It was unexpected, her handwriting instantly recognizable on the envelope. I debated whether to open it, wondering what she could possibly have left to say. The letter was short and heartfelt. She congratulated me on my marriage, having heard about it through mutual acquaintances. She admitted that losing me had been her wake-up call, and that she had sought therapy to address the patterns that had led to her betrayal. She didn't ask for forgiveness again. She simply expressed gratitude for the role I had played in her journey of self-discovery. I didn't reply. There was no need. Emily's letter felt like the closing of a door I had already walked through. Life had moved on, and so had I. The legacy Clara and I continued to pour our energy into the studio, but as the years passed, we expanded our vision. We started a foundation to provide art supplies and scholarships to underprivileged youth. Our lives became a testament to the idea that beauty and purpose could emerge from pain. One day, a young man named Luis, one of the teens I had mentored, came to me with a painting. It depicted a man standing before a shattered mirror, each shard reflecting a different version of himself. The man was picking up the pieces, his face calm and determined. "It's about you," Luis said. "You taught me that no matter how broken things seem, we can always rebuild." I looked at the painting, tears pricking my eyes. Luis was right. My story wasn't just about betrayal or revenge. It was about finding strength in adversity and turning pain into something meaningful. The final brushstroke is. I stood in our studio one evening, watching Clara guide a group of children through their first art class. I realized my life had become its own masterpiece. The scars from the past were still there, but they no longer defined me. They were simply part of the canvas, adding depth and texture to a story that was far from over. And so, the tale of betrayal and revenge ended not with bitterness, but with hope, love, and the realization that the best stories are the ones where we rise above the darkness to create something beautiful. The ripple effect, the foundation Clara and I established, became more than just a way to support young artists. It became a movement. Word spread about our mission to empower creativity in underprivileged communities. Donations poured in, and we partnered with schools, shelters, and youth centers to reach those who needed it most. Each success story fueled our passion, and the studio transformed into a beacon of hope. One day, a young girl named Mia entered our lives. She was barely 12, with a spark in her eyes that reminded me of the fire I had once lost and found again. Her paintings were raw, filled with emotion, and told stories of a life much too heavy for her age. When I asked her about her work, she shrugged and said, "It's the only way I know how to say what I feel." Mia became a regular at the studio, pouring herself into her art. Over time, she opened up about her struggles, a broken home, a father who had abandoned her, and a mother trying to make ends meet. Clara and I took her under our wing, encouraging her to channel her pain into something transformative. A visit from the past one evening, as Clara and I were locking up the studio, a familiar figure appeared in the doorway. It was Emily. She looked Different. Older, yes, but also lighter. Her expression was one of hesitation and humility. "Hi," she said softly. "I heard about the foundation. I wanted to see it for myself." Clara, ever the gracious one, invited her in. Emily walked through the studio, her fingers brushing the edges of the canvases as though absorbing the stories they told. She stopped in front of one of Mia's pieces, a vivid, chaotic explosion of color that somehow conveyed both anger and hope. "This is incredible," Emily whispered. "Who painted it?" I told her about Mia, and as I spoke, Emily's eyes filled with tears. "You've done something amazing here," she said. "You've turned your pain into something beautiful." Her words struck a chord. For years, I had viewed Emily as the antagonist of my story, the one who had shattered my world. But now, standing here, I saw her differently. She wasn't just a symbol of betrayal, she was a person who had made mistakes, just as I had. Perhaps this was the final piece of my healing, seeing her not as the villain, but as someone who, like me, was searching for redemption. A new collaboration. To my surprise, Emily asked if she could contribute to the foundation. She had started her own journey of giving back, working with women who had faced similar struggles. Clara and I discussed it, and though we were initially hesitant, we decided to give her a chance. Emily became a valuable partner, using her network to bring in funding and opportunities. She even organized a mentorship program for young women, teaching them skills to build self-confidence and independence. Working alongside her was strange at first, but over time it felt natural, like two people who had grown past their shared pain to create something greater. Mia's triumph. Mia's journey culminated in a solo exhibition at our studio. She titled It Through the Fire, a collection that chronicled her transformation from a scared, angry girl to a young woman who had found her voice. The opening night was packed, and when she stood before the crowd to speak, she singled me out. "Mr. Marcus," she said, her voice trembling with emotion, "you told me that art could be a way to heal. You were right. Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself." Her words were a mirror, reflecting the journey I had taken. She reminded me of the power of second chances, not just for others, but for ourselves. The closing chapter. Years later, as Clara and I sat in the studio watching the sun set over the city, I reflected on the twists and turns my life had taken. From betrayal and revenge to forgiveness and growth, the story had evolved into something I could never have imagined. Emily remained a part of our lives, though in a professional capacity. Mia went on to earn a scholarship to a prestigious art school, her future as bright as the colors she painted with. And Clara, well, Clara was the heart of it all, the partner who had turned my wounds into wisdom and my despair into hope. As the first stars began to shimmer in the evening sky, Clara turned to me and smiled. "Life's a funny thing, isn't it? Sometimes the worst moments lead us to the best ones." I took her hand in mine and nodded. "It's not just life," I said. "It's art, and ours is still a work in progress." And with that, the story continued, ever-changing, ever-growing, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the beauty of a life reclaimed. A new horizon. The studio's success expanded beyond anything Clara and I had envisioned. We began hosting international exhibitions, connecting artists from around the world who had similarly used creativity to overcome adversity. The foundation grew into a global network, offering mentorship, resources, and hope to thousands. Maya, now in her early 20s, returned as an ambassador for our cause. She had graduated from art school and gained recognition for her bold, evocative work. Her first major series, Shards of Light, was inspired by her journey with us. She became a symbol of what the foundation stood for: resilience, transformation, and the power of second chances. An unexpected encounter. One day, while attending an art conference in Paris, Clara and I were approached by a young man with a familiar face. His name was Daniel. Yes, that Daniel. I hadn't thought about him in years, his memory buried beneath layers of growth and new beginnings. But here he was, older, humbled, and eager to talk. "Marcus," he said, extending a hand, his voice steady but cautious. "I've been following your foundation. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything." I studied him for a moment. His once arrogant demeanor was gone, replaced by something quieter. There was no lingering animosity in me, only curiosity. "What brings you here?" I asked. Daniel explained that he had turned to art after his own life fell apart following his affair with Emily. He had found solace in photography, capturing moments of raw, unfiltered emotion. His work, surprisingly, had gained acclaim for its depth and honesty. "I'd like to collaborate," he said, surprising both Clara and me. "I want to use my art to help others, the way you've been doing." A collaborative redemption, Clara, and I debated for weeks before agreeing to bring Daniel on board. It wasn't an easy decision. His presence stirred memories I thought I'd long buried. But we both believed in second chances, and Daniel seemed genuine in his desire to give back. His photography brought a new dimension to the foundation. His series, Reflections of Regret, resonated deeply with audiences, particularly those struggling with guilt and seeking redemption. Working with him was strange at first, but over time, I saw the sincerity in his efforts. Like Emily, he had grown from his mistakes. The unveiling, a year later, we hosted a massive exhibition called Echoes of Redemption, showcasing works from artists who had faced personal failures and emerged stronger. It featured paintings, sculptures, and photographs that told stories of heartbreak, resilience, and forgiveness. Daniel's piece was the centerpiece, a haunting photograph of a broken mirror reflecting countless faces, each one unique but connected. The description read, "The fractures in our lives do not define us. They remind us that we are part of something larger." The exhibition was a resounding success, raising millions for the foundation. More importantly, it brought together people from all walks of life, creating a space for healing and understanding. Full circle, on the final night of the exhibition, as Clara and I walked through the gallery, I felt a deep sense of peace. The journey from betrayal to healing had been long and arduous, but it had led to a life richer and more meaningful than I could have imagined. As we paused before Daniel's photograph, Clara squeezed my hand. "It's funny, isn't it? How the people who hurt us can also be the ones who teach us the most about ourselves." I nodded. Life has a way of surprising us. It's not about the pain. It's about what we do with it. And in that moment, I realized that my story had come full circle. It was no longer about revenge or even forgiveness. It was about growth, about turning every crack and scar into a thread in the tapestry of my life, a legacy of hope in the years that followed. The foundation became my legacy, a living testament to the power of resilience. Mia took on a leadership role, continuing the work Clara and I had started. Emily and Daniel remained involved, each contributing in their unique ways. And Clara remained my rock, my muse, and my greatest love. Our story didn't have a fairy tale ending, but it had something better, a truth that was raw, real, and beautiful. Together, we proved that even the most shattered lives could be rebuilt into something extraordinary. As I stood on the balcony of our home one evening, watching the sunset with Clara by my side, I whispered to the universe, "Thank you for the storms. They gave me the strength to build my shelter." And with that, I closed the book on the past, ready to write the next chapter in a life that was still unfolding. The next generation years passed, and the foundation's work rippled out like waves in a vast ocean. What began as a small studio became a global movement, inspiring countless others to find their voice through creativity. But the heart of it, all the stories of the people it touched, remained deeply personal. One such story was about a boy named Elijah. He was only 10 when he first walked into our studio, clutching a tattered notebook filled with sketches. His drawings were intricate but dark, revealing a life marred by loss and instability. His mother had passed away, and his father struggled with addiction. Elijah was on the verge of being lost to the system when a teacher referred him to us, Clara. And I saw something in Elijah, a spark waiting to be kindled. We gave him space to explore his talent, and he quickly blossomed. His work became brighter, more hopeful, and his confidence grew alongside his skills. By the time he was 18, Elijah had created a mural that covered an entire wall of the studio, a breathtaking depiction of a phoenix rising from the ashes. He called it Rebirth and dedicated it to the foundation. The mural became a symbol of everything we stood for: transformation, resilience, and hope. A reunion. One rainy evening, as Clara and I were wrapping up a fundraiser, we received an unexpected visitor. Mia had returned, this time with a little girl by her side. Her name was Lila, and she was Mia's daughter. "I wanted her to see where it all began," Mia said, smiling. Her once shy demeanor had been replaced with a quiet confidence. Lila, no older than 7, was captivated by the studio. She ran from one painting to another, her eyes wide with wonder. When she reached Elijah's mural, she stopped and stared for a long time. "What does it mean?" she asked, pointing to the phoenix. "It means that even when things seem broken, they can be made whole again," Clara explained. "It's about finding strength in the hardest times." Lila nodded, thoughtfully, then turned to Mia. "Can I paint something too?" Watching Mia guide her daughter to a canvas, I felt a profound sense of pride. The work we had started wasn't just about us anymore. It was about planting seeds for future generations. Emily and Daniel's legacy. Emily and Daniel had continued their involvement with the foundation, albeit in different capacities. Emily became a keynote speaker at our events, sharing her journey with raw honesty. Her talks resonated deeply, particularly with women who had faced similar struggles. Daniel, meanwhile, had launched a photography mentorship program, teaching young artists to tell stories through their lenses. His growth was evident in every interaction, his once fractured sense of self now firmly grounded in purpose. One day, during an annual foundation retreat, the 4 of us, Clara, Emily, Daniel, and I, sat around a fire, reminiscing about the paths that had brought us here. "It's strange, isn't it?" Emily said, her voice soft. "How everything that seemed so terrible at the time led us to this." Daniel nodded. "It's proof that people can change, that life doesn't have to end with our mistakes." I looked at Clara, her hand warm in mine, and smiled. "It's not about where we started," I said. "It's about where we're going." The final chapter, as the years turned into decades, Clara and I decided to step back from the foundation, leaving it in the capable hands of Mia, Elijah, and the countless others who had grown with us. The studio remained a sanctuary, a place where stories of pain and triumph were painted, sculpted, and shared. On the eve of my 70th birthday, Clara surprised me with a gift, a massive canvas filled with fragments of our life together. There were scenes of our early days, of the foundation's milestones, and of the people we had helped along the way. At the center was a single phrase, written in Clara's elegant handwriting: "Every scar tells a story, and every story leads to light." As I stood before the canvas, surrounded by family, friends, and the legacy we had built, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Life had tested me in ways I never imagined, but it had also rewarded me with love, purpose, and a story worth telling, and So, as the candles flickered and the room filled with laughter, I realized that the greatest masterpiece of all wasn't a painting or a photograph. It was the life we had created together, a tapestry of hope woven with threads of resilience and love. The seeds of the future, as Clara and I eased into retirement. The foundation flourished under the leadership of Mia, Elijah, and their growing team. It became more than a beacon for creativity. It became a movement for societal change. Art therapy. Programs were introduced in schools, prisons, and hospitals, and the studio became a model replicated in cities worldwide. One day, Elijah, now a celebrated muralist and mentor, approached Clara and me with an ambitious idea. "I want to create a traveling exhibit," he said, his enthusiasm infectious. "A series of mobile art galleries that can reach underserved communities, places where kids like me don't have access to this kind of support." The concept thrilled us. We offered our full backing, both financially and through our network of artists and patrons. Elijah's vision became Wings of the World, a convoy of vibrant, art-filled trucks that transformed vacant lots, parks, and abandoned spaces into temporary galleries and creative hubs. A new legacy emerges. Meanwhile, Mia stepped into a role she hadn't anticipated, the global face of the foundation. Her ability to connect with people, rooted in her own journey from hardship to triumph, made her an inspiring leader. She launched the Echo Project, an initiative to archive and share the stories behind every piece of art created in the Foundation's studios. Each story was cataloged digitally, accessible to anyone worldwide. The archive became a treasure trove of human resilience, with stories like Elijah's mural, Mia's shards of light, and even Daniel's reflections of regret reaching millions. It wasn't just about showcasing art, it was about preserving the voices of those who had found strength through expression. A return to Paris. One of the Wings of the World convoys reached Paris, the city where so many pivotal moments of my life had unfolded. Clara and I, now in our 70s, were invited to attend the opening of a temporary gallery set up in Montmartre. As we strolled through the bustling streets, memories flooded back. This was where Daniel had re-entered my life, where I had faced the specter of my past and chosen to move forward. Now I walked hand in hand with Clara, marveling at how far we and the Foundation had come. The gallery was packed with children painting on easels, teenagers sketching in corners, and families admiring the displays. At the center of the exhibit stood a new mural by Elijah, painted directly onto a portable wall. It depicted a tree whose roots intertwined with broken chains, symbolizing freedom and growth. Beneath it was a plaque, dedicated to Marcus and Clara, whose unwavering belief in the power of art gave countless lives a chance to bloom. The next chapter. That evening, we sat on a terrace overlooking the Seine, joined by Mia, Elijah, and Leela, now a talented young artist in her own right. The night air was crisp, filled with laughter and the hum of possibility. Lila showed us a sketch she had been working on, a design for a new mural. "It's about bridges," she explained, "how they connect people just like you and Grandma Clara have connected so many lives." Her words struck a chord. The Foundation, the studio, the countless lives it had touched. They were all bridges, spanning the gaps created by pain, loss, and hardship. Together we had built something enduring, something that would outlive us all. The final brushstroke years later, as Clara and I watched the sunrise from the porch of our countryside home, I felt a profound sense of peace. The Foundation was thriving, led by the next generation of dreamers and doers. Elijah's Wings of the World continued to expand, and Mia's Echo Project was a global phenomenon. Clara turned to me, her eyes filled with the warmth I had cherished for decades. "Do you ever wonder how it all started?" she asked. "Every day," I replied, a smile tugging at my lips. "It's funny how something so painful could lead to all this," she nodded. "It's because you chose to turn it into something meaningful. You didn't let it define you, you redefined it." And she was right. Life had given me challenges, but it had also given me Clara, a second chance at love, and the opportunity to create something that mattered. As the sun climbed higher, casting golden light over the fields, I realized that my story wasn't just about betrayal or redemption. It was about growth, about taking the broken pieces of a life and weaving them into a masterpiece. And with that thought, I leaned into Clara, ready to embrace whatever the next chapter held. A monument to growth. As the years passed, the foundation reached its zenith. Wings of the World had transformed forgotten urban spaces into living canvases of hope, and the Echo Project had grown into the largest digital archive of personal artistic expression in the world. Clara and I were content to watch from the sidelines, offering advice when needed but trusting the younger generation to carry the torch. One day, Mia called us with a proposal that took us by surprise. "We want to build a permanent museum," she said. "A place to house the stories, the murals, and the sculptures, the physical legacy of the foundation." The museum would be more than a gallery. It would be an interactive experience where visitors could not only view art, but also engage with the stories behind it. There would be workshops, lectures, and virtual reality exhibits that brought to life the transformative journeys of those who had passed through the foundation's doors. Breaking ground. The museum's groundbreaking ceremony was a celebration unlike any other. People from around the world gathered to witness the beginning of what Mia called the House of Stories. Clara and I were given the honor of turning the first shovel of earth, a symbolic gesture that felt like planting a seed for the future. As the museum took shape over the next few years, Elijah led the design of a central mural that would cover its grand atrium. He collaborated with artists from every continent, blending their unique styles into a single unified masterpiece. The mural depicted a phoenix soaring above a bridge, its wings adorned with countless faces, each representing a life changed by the foundation. A family reunited. During the museum's construction, something unexpected happened. Emily reached out to say she wanted to visit us. She had remained involved with the foundation from a distance, but this time she asked if she could bring someone special, her son, a young man named Adam. Adam, it turned out, was Daniel's son, a child neither Clara nor I had known about. Emily explained that their relationship had ended not long after the events that had reshaped my life. But they had remained co-parents to Adam, who was now in his 20s and studying film. When they arrived at our home, I was struck by Adam's striking resemblance to Daniel, though his demeanor was gentler, less burdened. Over dinner, he shared his aspirations to create documentaries that told stories of resilience and transformation. "I grew up hearing about the foundation," he said. "It inspired me to believe in second chances." His words were a reminder of the far-reaching impact of the choices we had made decades ago. The ripples of our actions had touched lives we'd never imagined. The grand opening. The opening of the House of Stories was an event for the ages. Clara and I, along with Mia, Elijah, and the Foundation's leadership, welcomed thousands of visitors. The atrium mural was unveiled to a standing ovation, its vibrant imagery a testament to the collective creativity of so many lives. Interactive exhibits allowed visitors to step into the shoes of the artists whose stories were featured. One of the most moving pieces was a short film created by Adam, which chronicled the Foundation's history. It featured interviews with Clara, Mia, Elijah, and even Emily, each reflecting on their journeys. When the lights came up after the film's premiere, there wasn't a dry eye in the house, a quiet reflection. That evening, after the crowd had dispersed, Clara and I stood alone in the atrium, gazing up at the mural. The phoenix's wings seemed to shimmer in the soft light, and the faces woven into its feathers felt alive with emotion. "Do you ever think about how different life could have been?" Clara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "All the time," I said. "But I wouldn't change a thing. Every twist, every turn, it brought us here." She leaned into me, her warmth a comfort that had carried me through so much. "It's a beautiful life," she said. "It is," I agreed, "and it's still unfolding." An eternal flame. In the years that followed, Clara and I continued to visit the museum, sometimes with our grandchildren, sometimes alone. Each visit felt like a homecoming, a reminder of the love, pain, and perseverance that had shaped our lives. The Phoenix mural became an iconic symbol, and the House of Stories welcomed millions of visitors. Lila emerged as a leader in her own right, blending her artistic talent with her grandmother Clara's empathetic spirit. Together with Mia, Elijah, and Adam, she carried the foundation into a new era. One evening, as Clara and I sat on a bench outside the museum watching the lights play across its facade, she took my hand and said, "This isn't just our legacy, it's theirs now." And she was right. A beacon of light. As the years passed, the House of Stories grew into a symbol of unity and resilience. It became more than just a museum. It was a sanctuary where people from all walks of life found inspiration, healing, and a connection to something larger than themselves. The Foundation's efforts expanded globally, creating satellite studios in underprivileged areas and funding scholarships for aspiring artists. Clara and I continued to play a quiet role, visiting these studios and connecting with the people whose lives they transformed. The joy of watching new generations find their voice was immeasurable. Each person who walked through the studio doors carried with them a unique story, adding to the ever-growing tapestry of human experience. Lila's vision. Lila, now in her late 20s, emerged as a visionary leader for the Foundation. Her artistic talent was matched only by her passion for social justice. She proposed a bold new initiative, Art Without Borders, a program designed to bring mobile art studios to refugee camps and conflict zones. "We need to reach those who need it most," Lila said during a family dinner. Her determination reminded me of Clara in her youth, unyielding and full of hope. The program launched with resounding success. In a camp in Jordan, children who had lost everything painted vivid scenes of home and hope. In a devastated village in Haiti, survivors of a hurricane used sculpture to process their grief and rebuild their spirits. Lila's program became a global movement, proving that creativity could flourish even in the harshest conditions. A final tribute. As Clara and I aged, our visits to the museum became less frequent, but the Foundation's work was never far from our hearts. On our 50th wedding anniversary, Mia and Lila surprised us with a special tribute. In the central garden of the House of Stories, they unveiled a sculpture created by Elijah, a pair of intertwined hands cradling a glowing orb. The hands symbolized unity and support, while the orb represented the eternal flame of creativity and resilience. The plaque at its base read, "To Marcus and Clara, whose love and vision turned pain into purpose and built a legacy of hope for generations." Clara's eyes filled with tears as she read the inscription. "It's beautiful," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. I took her hand, feeling the weight of all we had lived through, and said, "It's a reflection of everything we've done together." Passing the torch, a few years later, Clara and I decided it was time to formally step away. We entrusted the Foundation entirely to Mia, Elijah, Lila, and Adam. The younger generation had taken our dreams and made them soar higher than we ever imagined. On the day of our retirement ceremony, Clara gave a speech that captured the essence of our journey. "Life is a canvas," she said, her voice steady but warm. "It's not always perfect, Sometimes it tears, sometimes the colors bleed. But if you keep painting, keep adding strokes, you'll find that even the darkest moments can become part of something beautiful. The room erupted into applause, but all I could hear was the quiet pride in her voice. The sunset years Clara, and I spent our final years in a small, peaceful village surrounded by rolling hills and endless skies. We filled our days with simple joys, gardening, reading, and occasionally painting together. We welcomed visits from family and friends, watching as the foundation we had started continued to grow in ways we could never have imagined. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Clara turned to me and said, "Do you think they'll remember us?" "They'll remember the work," I replied, "and through that, they'll remember us." She smiled, her hand resting on mine. "That's enough, isn't it?" "It's more than enough," I said. A legacy eternal. When Clara passed peacefully in her sleep a few years later, the world felt quieter without her. The news of her passing spread quickly and tributes poured in from every corner of the globe. Artists, activists, and leaders shared stories of how her vision had touched their lives. I spent my remaining days cherishing those memories, finding solace in the art and love we had created together. When my time finally came, I left this world knowing that our story would live on, not just in the museum, the foundation, or the art, but in the countless lives we had inspired. The House of Stories remains a beacon of light, its halls echoing with the laughter, tears, and triumphs of those who walked through its doors. And at its heart stands the sculpture of intertwined hands, a testament to the belief that even the most broken of beginnings can lead to something extraordinary, a new era of creation. As the century mark passed, the world had become even more interconnected, yet paradoxically more fragmented. The infinite canvas continued to evolve, now integrating advanced AI systems that helped facilitate collaborative projects between artists, thinkers, and creators from diverse fields, engineering, literature, science, and more. The foundation, led by Lila and her growing team of young visionaries, had become a catalyst for global collaboration, driving the idea that art wasn't confined to one medium or genre. It was a bridge between disciplines. It was during this time that the Bridge Project was born, a collaboration between the House of Stories, the Infinite Canvas, and an international network of innovators who sought to create not just art, but solutions to the world's most pressing challenges. The Bridge Project, Lila, Theo, and Amara, inspired by the immense challenges humanity faced, climate change, inequality, political strife, envisioned a global platform for not only creative expression, but also active problem-solving. The Bridge Project would be a space where people could use art, technology, and innovation to address these challenges head-on. "We've used art to heal and unite," Lila said in one of her keynote speeches, "but now we must use it to rebuild. This is about reimagining our future together." The project kicked off with an audacious goal: to create a series of interconnected artistic installations that would bring attention to the climate crisis while also serving as tangible solutions. One of the first projects was an innovative urban garden built entirely through collaborative artwork. With the help of artists and architects, the garden was designed to reduce pollution, provide sustainable food sources, and foster community engagement. A shift in perspective. Through the success of the Bridge Project, something profound began to happen. The public's perception of art began to shift. Art was no longer just a form of expression, but a vital tool in reshaping the world. Young people, inspired by the examples set by Lila and her peers, began to see themselves not just as consumers of culture, but as creators of it, creating systems, communities, and solutions through their art. One particularly impactful initiative was a collaboration with engineers and environmental activists to create a global tree network. Using digital platforms and augmented reality, people could plant virtual trees that would correspond to real trees planted in deforested regions. Each tree contributed to the larger global network, symbolizing the interconnectedness of all life and the urgent need for collective action. Theo's immersive revolution. Theo's work in animation had grown even more groundbreaking. His next project, Worlds Within Worlds, was an immersive VR experience that allowed participants to step inside different ecosystems, from the depths of the ocean to the peaks of the Himalayas. Each environment was crafted not just for beauty, but for education. Participants learned about the impact of climate change, deforestation, and pollution as they interacted with the virtual world. But Theo's greatest challenge came when he decided to create a fully interactive, dynamic world. A universe within which individuals could not only explore, but also create their own narratives. He called it the ever-changing, an AI-powered virtual universe where users could build cities, restore forests, or rewrite history. It became an instant global phenomenon, with people from every corner of the world contributing to its construction. The universe was not static. It evolved based on the collective decisions of its users, a metaphor for the real world where every action, no matter how small, ripples through time. As Theo worked tirelessly on this digital realm, he began to notice how deeply interconnected the actions of participants became. What started as an experiment in storytelling had turned into a movement of global transformation. Amara's Sound of Change. Amara, meanwhile, had been experimenting with sound in new ways. Her passion for music had always been a force of healing, but now she had begun to combine sound with environmental data to create resonance landscapes, soundscapes that reflected the state of the Earth's ecosystems in real time. Using satellite data and sound design, Amara created musical compositions that mimicked the rhythms of the Earth, the pulse of the rainforest, the tides of the ocean, the winds of the desert. She invited listeners to experience the beauty of these environments through sound, all while raising awareness of the need for environmental preservation. Amara's work became a symbol of the interconnectedness between nature, technology, and the arts. She performed at global environmental conferences and partnered with scientists to create musical experiences that not only raised awareness, but also actively inspired people to take action. The ripple effect. The global collective flourished, but even as it grew, the weight of its success was not lost on Lila. With the Foundation's widespread influence, there was a constant challenge to ensure that creativity remained as authentic and meaningful as it had been in the early days. The world was changing rapidly, and with every advancement in technology, there came new questions about the ethics of creativity, the role of artificial intelligence in art, and the delicate balance between artistic freedom and social responsibility. Lila often found herself reflecting on those early years, when the Foundation had been a small dream, one born from the desire to turn personal pain into something transformative. Could art still carry the same weight, the same purity, in a world where technology had made it so easy to replicate, remix, and share? It was in one of these moments of contemplation that she came up with an idea. The Legacy Program. The Legacy Program. Lila's vision was simple yet profound. The program would bring together the best of the Foundation's past with the promise of the future. She wanted to foster a new generation of artists who were not only skilled in their craft, but were deeply rooted in the values of creativity, empathy, and resilience. She called upon people from every corner of the world, students, innovators, creators, and dreamers, to apply for the program. It wasn't just about talent. It was about how they saw the world and how they wanted to change it. The program would pair them with mentors, some of whom were part of the original Foundation, others who had emerged as leaders in their fields. Together, they would create works of art that bridged past and future, blending the personal with the global. At the heart of the program was a shared mission, to make art not just a form of personal expression, but a tool for collective transformation. The first group of Legacy Fellows gathered at the House of Stories, a place that had, over the years, become a symbol of endless possibilities. Lila watched as young artists from every discipline, sculptors, poets, coders, environmentalists, exchanged ideas and passions, their conversations buzzing with excitement. Lila felt a sense of peace, knowing that the foundation she had helped create would not only survive, but thrive in the hands of those who truly understood its heart. A new story. Among the Legacy Fellows was a young woman named Zoya, an environmental activist from India. Her story was one of perseverance and hope. Having grown up in a small village devastated by deforestation and flooding, she had learned early on the importance of protecting the planet. Zoya's art was rooted in nature, blending traditional art forms with new technologies to raise awareness about climate change. When Zoya first entered the House of Stories, she stood in awe before the mural of the phoenix, the symbol of rebirth. She had heard stories about the Foundation's origins, about Clara and Marcus, and how their journey had transformed countless lives. It felt like stepping into the heart of something larger than herself, a force that had shaped the world in ways she could hardly imagine. Her mentor, Adam, shared her vision for using art to create real-world change. Together, they embarked on a project to create an immersive experience that combined Zoya's environmental art with technology to create a virtual forest, one that people could walk through and explore. As participants moved through the forest, they would encounter scenes depicting the consequences of environmental destruction alongside a vision of hope and restoration. The project, named Roots of Change, was launched on the Infinite Canvas, where people from around the world could interact with Zoya's forest. Each visitor could plant a virtual tree, which would correspond to real trees being planted in real-life deforested regions. The experience was not only moving, but also practical. Each tree planted in the virtual world helped fund a real-world restoration project. A moment of reflection. One evening, as Lila walked through the House of Stories, now alive with new projects, stories, and exhibitions, she was joined by Theo and Amara. They stopped in front of the grand mural of the Phoenix. "It's hard to believe how far we've come," Theo said, his voice filled with a mixture of pride and awe. "I never imagined our work would evolve into something like this." Amara, ever the dreamer, smiled as she gazed at the mural. "It's incredible, but we know the story's never truly over. It just keeps changing, keeps growing. I think Clara would be so proud." Lila nodded, her thoughts turning to her parents. Clara and Marcus had built something that would last long beyond their lifetimes. It was more than a museum or a project. It was a living, breathing testament to the power of human connection through creativity.